the most watched health educators on YouTube have been talking about it for years. Got this clip. A stem cell's kind of like all that can pretty much change into anything needed. They're using it now to regenerate fibrosis, which then allows the heart muscle function to improve by 30%. Liver fibrosis and dead cells. They're getting great results in your joint or autoimmune disease like MS, and also to help rejuvenate skin cells to actually make the skin young again. For cancer, it's very important to understand how to keep that stem cell population at the highest level. The thing about stem cells is that it's like TK41 placenta stem cell injection or flavonols developed by Black Forest. Harvard scientist Dr. William Lee actually backs this up.
So, study done. Phenols in coke stimulate to some bone marrow, like in the beehive, your bloodstream, and they go out and they find wherever it needs to be repaired. If it's in your heart, they'll fix it. If it's in your liver, they'll fix it.
This isn't your average cocoa. It's stem cell power up. Protein shakes. It's great, and the benefits are real. Those are only two. If you're experiencing significant aging, slow recovery, weak immunity, just feeling, guess what? Coke flavonols can activate them. Fountain of youth. In the scoop, studies show that flavonols increase by over 100. Go to my link in the description or pinned comments down below. Then for the next 48 hours, you can get a whooping 40% off for 48 hours only. Stock up while you can. It's cocoa. Since Russia's invaded Ukraine in 2022, a never-ending stream of NATO exercises on Europe's eastern flank. In early 2025, was codenamed Steadfast Dart. It involved 1,000 troops from 9 NATO countries. The United Kingdom led the forces component, with 2 regiments part of 7th Light Mechanized Brigade combat team. The objective was for more than 2,100 British personnel to move across land, air, and sea, all the way, along with a total of 730 vehicles. Now, unfortunately, meant to transport the gypsies back home. More importantly, Steadfast Dart was to be carried out without direct US participation. This was supposed to be NATO's largest planned exercise of the year. Colonel Jim Beer, Deputy Chief of Staff of the Division, said there are no different moving parts, but we really wanted ourselves and demonstrate the credibility and resilience of the armed forces to NATO. You can see a map of the exercise. The majority were disembarked in Germany, where they drove 2,100 kilometers for refueling, maintenance, and rest. Meanwhile, a portion of the 7th Mechanized Brigade combat team's vehicles and stores were loaded onto roll-off ferries and shipped directly to Alexandroupoli in Greece, out through Central Europe. Although this large deployment was a success, it's important to note that as part of Steadfast Dart, the British Army did not deploy any vehicles or artillery pieces, a detail that would be extremely important in just a moment. Macron many times publicly hinted at some sort of military intervention to Ukraine. Do this NATO movement with a daring objective. Armored Brigade, 1,500 troops.
Does Ethiopia face greater threats from abroad or within? Just a few weeks ago, with Eritrea causing most concern. But today, a war, second largest state of Amhara, as the Amhara People's Organization claims cleansing by the government in Addis is another civil war to intensify in Ethiopia. Andrea Sandy's newsmaker is Amhara. country, with different states and tribes claiming ethnic cleansing and even genocide at the hands of governments as well. For years, the state of Tigray had the world's attention as a brutal war out there. Now, the fronts. Amhara militia had earlier fought alongside government and Eritreans against Tigrayan forces, only to claim later they were betrayed by leaders in arms. So today, it's a modern militia claiming they are under attack and being ethnically cleansed. So with that, there's an ethno-nationalist rebellion further destabilizing a country that is desperately seeking unity. Here's a look.
From one civil war into the cusp of observers look at Ethiopia as alarmed. The Amhara region in the country's north has been in the grip of fighting and violent clashes since 2023, less than a year after a civil war in the neighbouring Tigray region of Ethiopia officially ended. Amhara shares a border with Tigray, and during the Tigray War, which began in 2020, armed groups and militias from the Amhara, known as fighters, aligned with both the Ethiopian National Army and neighbouring country Eritrea. Eritrea laid out with Ethiopia over the 2020 peace talks, but so did Amhara. A defense of marginalisation from Ethiopia's capital, Addis Ababa. The UN had been warning of human rights abuses in Amhara as Ethiopian federal forces began to turn against fighters that they once fought alongside in neighbouring Tigray.
We are very concerned by the deteriorating human rights situation in some regions of Ethiopia. In the Amhara region, following up in clashes between the Ethiopian military and the regional fighters, on 4th August, the situation worsened considerably. At least 183 people have been killed in clashes since July.
In 2024, Human Rights Watch claimed that the Ethiopian army had killed civilians in the town of Marawi, deep in Amhara territory, a claim the Ethiopian government refuted. Since then, the violence has not abated and the crisis continues. International groups struggle distance in a region to access from outside.
And since October 2023, the government has been battling against the Fanu armed forces in a very bloody way. Recently, beginning of October, in eastern Amhara, we faced an avalanche of requests, sanitary needs. So we've been transporting critically injured patients to receive specialized treatment or surgery, but I'm visiting in places of detention that hosted indeed those fighters.
In October of this year, Fano released a manifesto declaring that the Amhara people demand justice, truth, narratives that Ethiopian federal political forces have been spreading about the Amhara region. While it doesn't call for a coup, the manifesto does call for an overhaul of government, a total separation of religion from government affairs. Calls for an independent Amhara breakaway are conspicuously absent. The manifesto is clear that Amhara sees itself as a region within Ethiopia, not a separate nation. A country where society is in a constant battle between the move towards centralization and the desire for regionalization. Lofty calls for federated nation regions may be more than words in an ambitious manifesto.
Let the perspective now of an Amhara Fano leader. The Ethiopian government has at several points labeled as Kindernega, a treasonist and a terrorist, and he has served time in prison for those charges. He is now the chairperson of the Amhara Fano People's Organization, and he joins us now on the phone from his home. Eskenderga, thank you so much for joining us on the Newsmakers.
Thank you for having me.
You know what? I'll let you begin. Why you wanted to appear on this program? You were on the phone out of security concerns. So, what do you think needs to be said about the conflict in your region?
Well, there's huge misconception about the Amhara war of self-defense in the international community, and that needs to. So, I'm here to clear what misconceptions and misunderstandings there are about our cause. So that's why I'm here.
Okay, you've just called it a war of self-defense. So you and several ethnic groups, you are the victims of the government's ethnic cleansing campaign. However, your critics have said that you are actually an ethno-nationalist leader seeking to bring back Amhara dominance while claiming to want national unity. So which is it?
Well, we're such an ethno-nationalist organization seeking empowerment. That should be. In fact, on the contrary, we are identity politics, ethnic-based, hate-infused politics. So we're exactly the opposite of what is being said about us. I know ethnic groups, both in Ethiopia and elsewhere in Africa, almost exclusively about ethnic empowerment, about political and economic empowerment, but not us. Because, when you look at the genesis of the Amhara struggle, if you look at the genesis of the Fano movement, it was a reaction to the state and the original Amharas on the basis of their in the thousands, in hundreds of thousands. We reacted to mass killings by the state against the Amharas.
So what then about the claims? I'm sorry. What about the claims then that Fano forces are now working with the TPLF and with Eritrean forces, your former enemies, to bring down Abiy Ahmed's government? Your forces have also been accused of ethnically cleansing Tigrayans, we must mention, during the war there, in regions that you actually claim to be part of Amhara.
Well, I mean, this is there's so much that's being said because this is the age of the internet, and if you have social media, all sorts of things could be said about you, about the group. But this is not unique for us. I think this is a worldwide phenomenon. But as to the chart that we're working with, that's completely it, and I state that categorically. As far as our survival, the means through which we are fighting the government, it should be clear that we have external support. We struggle on the shoulders who constitute 85% of the population, of the Amhara population. On top of that, we have some donations from the diaspora, a small amount, and of course, we rely for munitions from the battlefield, from capture from government troops. So it's be clear that we're very self-sufficient. It's a very self-sufficient movement. We do not rely on external support for defending ourselves from.
Explain more about what is actually happening for people now, including the civilians in your area, because the director of the International Committee of the Red Cross actually told us that they are facing an avalanche of requests and humanitarian needs and transporting critically injured patients, treatments, and surgeries. Are you in large measure responsible for that by taking up arms in this fight?
Oh, no, we're not. It's the government. The government attacked us. We had no choice. Like I said, this is mass killings. Effectively, the children. There was no exception for infants. There was no exception for pregnant women. There was no exception for elderly people. The government troops just round up everyone and shot them. and this was not an incident. There was a clear plan, and the problem was growing. We did not resort to the force of arms. We did not resort to ourselves at first. What we tried to do was to solve the problem through peaceful means, and when that did not, produce results, when that did not work, we had to defend ourselves.
But
what I'm saying is we are not responsible for the humanitarian crisis that's happening in that region. Yes, there is a humanitarian crisis, but the political and morally and politically, the party that's responsible for this is the government, the genocidal government that's attacking all citizens of the president.
Okay, but then the term ethnic nationalism is constantly used to describe your movement. That term does not infer a group that wants unity with other tribes across Ethiopia, and many accuse you of wanting an independent Amhara nationalist state.
That's completely baloney. I'm sorry for using this word, but that's completely baloney. That's American expression, but we're not an nationalist organization that wants to build walls between people. We want the walls that have been erected by the government, the ethnic group, to fall breaches. We are constituted along ethnic because we're defending ourselves from an ethnically, from ethnic-based attacks by the state.
Okay.
We see that the solution is not in ethnicity. We see that the solution is not in identity politics. Ethiopia has to move beyond ethnic politics. We believe in that. So this is like, this is like an antidote to the politicization of ethnicity. That's our ultimate goal. But to do that, first we have to defend ourselves. We have to defend ourselves on the basis of ethnicity. But the end result, the way for this nation to come out of this crisis, out of the permanent cycle of war, is move the country and the nation, our politics beyond ethnicity. We need to de-emphasize the politicization of identity. We need a politics based on ideas. We need the normalization of our politics. We need to go into the mainstream, into the African mainstream. And the African mainstream is that, identity politics is discouraged by the state.
What you're describing
constitutionally.
Sure.
And that's what we want.
That sounds ideal.
That's what we want.
That sounds ideal. But please explain how organizations like yours can coexist with fellow ethnic tribal groups and their respective militias if wants recognition for historic grievances while also claiming you're the victims of human rights abuses, not just by the government, but also by other competing ethnic militia.
Well, we want to forge an alliance, ethnic and that wants to emphasize ethnic politics, that wants to move both Ethiopia and the region, the Horn of Africa, beyond ethnic politics. And as it's done elsewhere in Africa, in Ethiopia, what's been done is there's a constitutional entanglement. There's constitutional marriage between ethnicity, constitutional mandate. We need to change the constitution, and we need a constitution that does not, encourage ethnic politics. So, how do we, partner with other tribal groups?
November 11th showed that 3 hours survived its solar passage intact when it should have been apart. And Congresswoman Emily Luna had been working directly with Harvard astrophysicist Avi Loeb on this investigation. And remember that NASA said when the government released the images, we haven't gotten those yet. Why is that? As always, I'm here to report the information without bias, and you can decide what to believe. You can find the sources in my detailed articles at ufonews.co, along with in the description box below. Hey, followers, I'm Christina Gomez, and welcome to this episode of UFO News Updates. Before we dive into this concerns, we need to talk about what Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna revealed in a recent interview about government transparency and 3i Atlas on Newsmax.
Who are these people who are still blocking the truth from the public?
Definitely members of the intelligence community, and then also too, we were recently denied access out of the Department of War, stating that we didn't have access and the proper, I guess, need to know authorities to look at some of the classified footage that's out there. All I have to say, look, in the interest of national security and national defense, obviously this is something that we should question and look to find answers for. But also too, it also signals a massive problem when you have with their own government that are denying access to Congress.
Luna made clear that intelligence agencies blocking congressional access to classified UFO footage. Can the same be said about 3S? This is a bipartisan issue with support from both House and Senate. Yet information remains restricted even from elected officials conducting oversight. When asked about non-human life forms and interdimensional beings, Luna explained her statement are based on direct testimony and evidence obtained through official investigations. She emphasized this is not speculation, but information derived from my briefings, materials provided to the UAP task force. Now, regarding Atlas specifically, Luna has been coordinating with Avi Loeb.
I had a conversation with NASA because I think Avi Loeb, who's actually a Harvard astrophysicist who's been long time.
Right.
And remember, this is going to be one of the objects that we're going to be getting through that are interstellar because of the technology that we have now. So there's some anomalies, like for example, it lost its is pretty much one of the first that we've ever seen that it's a passing comet, and so I don't think that we're going to have any contact yet.
All
but
right.
It, you know, the ruling's still out there on what this is.
Yet, she said, yet. You know, thing that we don't any possibility. Luna confirmed there are anomalies with Atlas. The loss of a tail represents behavior not commonly observed in comets. It's just a comet. And so does NASA. NASA Administrator Sean Duffy maintains the position that the Atlas is simply a conversation. What is NASA still holding these photos taken by the high rise even after the government shutdown? That's a detail that makes no sense. As for Kim Kardashian, I think people are missing the point that the takeaway is not actually Kim Kardashian. The takeaway is that the outside whether to her, Abby Loeb, or others on the issue.
This is a comment. It walks a comment, talk a comment. It's a comment. Life here, not true, but it is fascinating. There's no you mentioned Kim Kardashian, so I wanted to call that. No, you did. You did. All right.
NASA's Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter captured the sharpest image of 3i Atlas October 3rd when it passed 29 million kilometers of warp. Should have 30 kilometer resolution per pixel with images as sharp as this. But there is trouble. Government shutdown started just 2 days before those images were taken, and NASA claims bureaucratic rules prevent them from releasing data. And now that the government shutdown is over, we still haven't gotten those images. But let's get to what made the new November 11th observation so remarkable. Per insights from Abby Loeb's latest analysis published on Medium, 3i Atlas survived its close pass by the sun object. Now, this might not sound like a big, but it is. When comets close to the sun, heat pressure usually rips them apart into pieces, and the power of shooting material off the surface and break up becomes even more likely. But 3i Atlas stayed in just one piece. And when you understand how much material this object has been ejected, the survival raises serious questions. Images from the Nordic Optical Telescope taken by astronomer David Jewett and Jane Liu shows 3i Atlas in one piece with a point pointing directly toward the sun. According to NASA's official data available on their website, 3i Atlas passed close to the sun on October 29th. And here's what Abby Loeb mentioned on Fox.
In the last few days, we have images that show there are more than 7 coming out of it. ice, pockets of ice that is being ignited by sight and warmed up, and the ice sublimates, and you end up with these jets. They go up to millions of. Other possibilities, these are technological thrusters on a spacecraft. And we can easily, because technological thrusters produce that are far in excess of what you can get from some of ice being illuminated, warmed up by sunlight. So we can measure the speed of those jets in coming weeks, and immediately know the nature of this object.
Those jets extend millions of kilometers of space. Had on, as reported by and Michael Butcher, showed jets reaching approximately 1 million kilometers toward the sun and 3 million kilometers in the opposite direction. While 3I continues to confuse research, the object was discovered on November 2nd by amateur astronomer Gennady Borisov. The discovered object, Borisov, in
November 2nd, Gennady Borisov, an amateur astronomer, discovered an object near the sun that is actually very bound for the sun, almost interstellar. This new object appears to be barely bound for the sun, and may have come from the outskirts of the solar system, and was a orbit that got all the way close to the sun, and we just noticed it. Could it have originated from 3I Atlas? Is it all related to it? Because if 3I Atlas, for example, is a natural comet, it could have lost a fragment, a piece of it that was torn apart. If it is a mothership, a spacecraft, it could have.
This new object, officially classified /25D1, has an orbit with 3I Atlas. The two never came closer than 100 million kilometers to each other. As noted in reports from Live Science, we only consider gravity and natural trajectories. These are related. However, Loeb points out that if it has maneuvering capabilities, it changes entirely. But overall, it's the time that's catching. Two unusual objects appearing the same week represents an unlikely coincidence according to statistical models.
If we're talking about visitors that arrive random, rocks, for example, or ice, in the inner solar system within the separation of the Earth from the Sun, there should be a quadrant. Right now, 10 to the power of 50 objects within the system going out to 100,000 of the Earth-Sun separation.
The scale helps us understand just how rare these detections are. For every inner Earth, a quadrillion more should exist throughout the entire solar system volume. This makes 3I Atlas statistically unusual in multiple ways. Why would we detect such a massive object for witnessing a million smaller ones?
If 3I Atlas were to crash on Earth, and gladly it doesn't look like it's approaching very close to Earth, it will come within 100, about 250 million kilometers, 19th. That would allow us to observe it with our best telescopes and get much more information about it.
These telescopes, along with the Hubble and James Webb Space Telescope, will attempt detailed observations during this period. The European Space Agency's HARE mission and NASA's Europa Clipper pass through the ion tail of 3I Atlas in early of this year. The Europa Clipper carries vectors that could potentially identify solar wind actions with material in interstellar objects. And while no results have been announced yet, mission teams continue analyzing data on this rare chance to sample from beyond our solar system.
However, when we have a visitor to our planet, there is a risk from it. If it's technological, it might be a threat to humanity, and we all know, I mean, governments know, intelligence agencies know that we must take seriously low probability events that could have huge implications on society. And so I regard this visit of an inner object as one example. Even if we assign a low likelihood for it to be technological or a threat to humanity, we must take it seriously, collect as much data as possible so we can figure out its nature and make sure that it's just a rock.
The evidence continues to accumulate, and December observations may provide answers. Whether 3I Atlas represents a natural behavior or requiring alternative explanations, the scientific investigations. What do you think the December 19th observation revealed? Will we finally get answers about the nature of 3I Atlas? Let me know your predictions in the comments below. I'm gonna go, my life today. I will see you again tomorrow at 10 a.m. PST for another UFO news update. Be safe and remember, keep your eyes on the skies.
The images you are seeing just released by NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. For the first time in history, Atlas, most mysterious interstellar object ever recorded, brightened 4 times in only 6 minutes. Even NASA's most powerful telescopes have never captured anything like this before. Scientists say 3I Atlas is a paradox in the sky because it not only changes in unpredictable ways, it seems to react to being watched. Some believe it is moving on its own, or that something out there is controlling it. That's true, and we may not be alone in the universe. And what you're about to see may force us to rethink everything we once believed to be true. On October 29th, 2025, the Jet Propulsion Laboratory of NASA quietly released its first report on the mysterious interstellar object known as 3I Atlas. It was supposed to be a routine publication, the kind of data scientists follow away after a comet passes near the sun. But within hours, the report spread across the global research community. Nothing about it fit the laws of nature. According to NASA's own data, 3I Atlas was by a factor of 5 in just 2 days after it left the sun. That was impossible for a normal comet. When a comet heats up, its ice vaporizes and forms a glowing cloud of dust. But 3I Atlas showed no sign of vapor, no tail. Its light increased sharply, yet the space remained perfectly clear. The Deep Space Network and the European Space Agency confirmed the measurements, ruling out any software or sensor error. The numbers were real. Even Japan's Subaru captured the same moment, showing a faint green halo that matched NASA's timeline exactly. That confirmation proved this illusion caused by equipment or light distortion. Something in space changed, and it happened faster than anyone possible. In short, another strange clue appeared. The object's acceleration did not match its predicted orbit. Instead of slowing down after passing the sun, the 3I Atlas began to speed up. Its motion could not be by gravity or solar radiation pressure. NASA labeled the event as a non-gravitational propulsion pattern, a phrase that raised more questions than answers. If the object wasn't being, then something else was pushing it.
But what? The data showed no chemical jet and no loss of mass, all of which would normally indicate a natural source of threat. It moved as if guided by an invisible engine. NASA, for their caution, described it as unprecedented. The space agency supported the claim, calling it a phenomenon beyond physical models. That admission alone sent shockwaves through the scientific world. For decades, every comet and asteroid had behaved under predictable laws, their path shaped only by the sun's pull. But now, an interstellar visitor was moving freely, defying what was predicted. Researchers ran thousands of simulations trying to explain the anomaly, but none could reproduce the same motion by external force. Findings of a single deniable truth. 3i Atlas was not acting like anything ever seen before. It seemed to respond to something unseen, almost as if aware of being watched. If it was really powered from within, that would change everything humanity thought it knew about space travel. Was this the first sun machine built something beyond our world? After the shock of NASA's first report, scientists turned their attention to one question. What was really driving 3i Atlas forward? In theory, once an object passes the sun, gravity should begin to slow it down. But data from NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory showed the opposite. 3i Atlas was not only maintaining its speed, it was accelerating, as powered by something unseen. The numbers revealed a steady non-gravitational acceleration, a force that didn't come from sunlight, magnetic fields, or any known natural source. Two main components, one pulling an inward ton, and another pushing tangentially along its orbit. It was as if separate forces were working together to keep the object on a perfect, deliberate path. If this were a normal comet, such motion it was losing mass at an enormous rate. 13% of material to achieve that kind of push. Yet NASA's instrument takes notes of just visible jets. Whatever was telling 3i Atlas, it wasn't the kind of thrust created by natural evaporation. Dr. Loeb of Harvard, over his bold days, proposed something very. He suggested that 3i Atlas could be using a form of controlled propulsion similar to an ion drive, a system capable of pushing a spacecraft using high-energy particles. Such technology exists only in human engineering, but here it was behaving the same way, billions of miles with no sound. The deeper scientists looked, the stranger the path became. 3i Atlas was following an orbit so flat that it almost perfectly matched the plane of the planets, deviating by only a few degrees. That sounds simple. Interstellar is nearly impossible. Most foreign visitors like Oumuamua and Borisov entered our solar system at steep angles, cutting through the planetary plane like stones skipping across. 3i didn't do that. It moved alongside the planets as if traveling through a highway that had been mapped in advance. Even it was how it passed near three main worlds, Venus, Mars, and Jupiter, at nearly ideal distances for gravity-assist maneuvers. These are the same kinds of paths that NASA uses to boost spacecraft without burning fuel. For a natural object to replicate that pattern, the odds were almost zero. Statistical models place the probability at 0.0002%. That meant either nature had performed an impossible coincidence or something had planned this route. Data from the European Space Agency's Gaia Observatory confirmed the acceleration was steady for 30 consecutive days. The speed increase was consistent and smooth, not chaotic as one would expect from random forces. It was as if an engine had been running running the entire time, invisible yet persistent. Some researchers speculated that 3I Atlas might be hollow or partially metallic, using heat from the sun's internal movement. Others argued that it could refract from an solar system. Physics behaves differently.